Is Wix, the platform Wix, a genuine contender in the e-commerce space?
I think no.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, that the offering's not bad, but it's still not as good as Shopify's. So why waste your time?
Jeff, what do you reckon?
Yeah, similar sentiment. I'm going to say no. That said, you know, it has a place. I think where people are still going wrong with Wix is it has a place. It's not somebody who's, you know, Gymshark and wants to start a £1 trillion business, but if you want to sell some soaps online or something like that, you've got a little hobby business, yeah, go for it.
Is that the crack, really? It's all right if you are a guy out your garage looking to flog a few candles that you've made on the weekend. But if you want to scale and grow a serious business, it's not going to do much for you.
I think so. You know, if you have to start somewhere, I think to start off on Wix is £6 a month, which, you know, the mega accessible. If you want to start something and you just want to sell some stuff online, or you want to throw up a website, you know, it will do the job. Yeah. Absolutely, it will definitely do the job and enable you to do whatever you want to do. Where, you know, it just falls short of being able to offer that additional feature set for somebody who wants to start something serious.
Yeah.
I was thinking about £1 million business, or how can I grow, and somebody who's thinking, you know, 5 years ahead.
Well, if you looked at the Wix YouTube page, you'd probably be forgiven for thinking otherwise if you didn't know any better, I guess, because I think it's very, very well set up in terms of, you know, how many tutorials is on there. There's some really good case studies as well about businesses that have admittedly seen a bit of a bump through COVID and what have you, but they've gone on to build businesses that are doing 6-figure months and hitting millions in revenue. So it absolutely can be done. I'm guessing the bigger question then within this is Wix a contender question is, where does it stop being useful, and like where does it start to break down if we compare it with a platform like Shopify? Joe, do you have any thoughts on that one?
I think there's almost a stage where you can be too small for Wix as well. If you compare Wix and Shopify, Shopify will let you purely do the thing where you integrate into your Facebook page and have a store within that, which Wix won't let you do. With Wix, you have to have a website, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But then once you're at that stage and you're making the decision actively, and they're both reasonable contenders, really looking at what I've read, it's pretty much when you decide you want to get somewhat serious, you know.
Yeah.
If you ever want to open an offline store, Shopify's got, you know, a genuine POS system that works for that. If you want to start doing anything in terms of optimizing pretty much anything, you know, whether that is your SEO being kind of a big one for us, obviously, then that's something where you can't do that very well in Wix pretty much at all. Yeah. You can't access the source code of your website, so you can add things in if there's you know, a setting somewhere to add something in. But if you want to add in, you know, a certain piece of software where you have to add a bit of code somewhere, then you can't actually get to the code of your Wix website, and it is very much sort of locked down, like idiot proof. And yeah, if you want to run like a lifestyle business, you probably could make £1 million a year or so on Wix and not really feel it. But if you decide you want to go and take on the world, somewhere very quickly you will hit an obstacle because you're on Wix.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, obviously coming at it from the organic side, I guess what's happening with Wix is objectively it used to be trash. It used to be like a drag and drop builder that was, you know, it was built using Flash, which, you know, is so 2004. But what's happened, I think it was around about 2016, they've made a conscious effort to say, you know, people think that Wix is shit, but let's try and make it better. And, you know, I haven't used the Wix site from an agency perspective, you know, since before that time. Yeah. But everything I'm seeing says that actually they've done the job of making it that, you know, one level better.
Yeah.
So fair play to them.
Yeah, you can do a decent e-commerce store in it at the moment as it is, but yeah, as we say, if we're looking at bigger stuff, enterprise stuff, you know, you're going to need access to your code, aren't you? What kind of problems can you run into if you don't have access to your code? Just picking up on what you said before, Joe, just put it in layman's terms. Is it things like, you can't put tag manager on there? Is there going to be problems with your Google ads and tracking off the back of it? Like, in reality, for a business owner, what will they not see because of that limitation with Wix?
It's going to be stuff like what you've mentioned, but more specific than that. I'm not going to stand here and say that you can't get Google Analytics to work, because at the end of the day, you go into the back end of Shopify or our mate's Aero or anywhere, and there's a box that you go and you put your little bit of code in and it takes care of the rest. You don't actually go to the source code anyway. Yeah. So it doesn't matter that you don't have that in Wix. But, as soon as you move past the dead obvious stuff, the big players, the Facebook pixels and the Google Analytics and tag managers and so on, as soon as you decide you want something that's a little bit obscure, that's where it starts to get more difficult, And I guess the irony is that that's the point where really you start to look for some sort of app, some sort of integrated solution, and Shopify's got the edge there as well. So Wix is in this position where as soon as you want to do something, and it's when you're starting to get a bit clever, it's when you're starting to want to do something that is genuinely going to take you from 1 million to 10 million and really make this a clever offering that's better than what the average store's doing. That's where you'll get stuck. And I guess with the apps, it will come on, Wix aren't calling them that, they're calling them integrations or something similar. But if you think about when smartphones first came along, right, like all your mates had an iPhone, and it was like, that was where all the apps were. And I can remember being on Android in about 2012 and like basic stuff like Instagram and Snapchat being like 6 months to a year behind, Yeah. And it was painful. And we're at a point now, like a decade on, where things come out at the same time, because if you're not on Android, you're nowhere. And maybe we'll get to a point where if you don't also have a Wix integration of some kind, then you are missing the trick. But right now, they are the little tiny one that takes 6 months to a year to come out, if you're going to get people catering to both anyway.
That's a really good analogy, I think, because what I was going to ask is, we're saying a lot at the moment as an agency that it's never been easier to start a business, meaning it's never been harder to grow one. But because it is so easy to start a business, and Wix, like from the outset, probably does look like the easier platform than Shopify to use. The design features, for example, come up time and time again. It's a WYSIWYG editor, it's drag and drop. You can, in effect, turn out a very nice looking website in a day without any experience, is how it's being sold to people. Because there's so many people just doing that now and having an idea and wanting to sell something out of the garage. And these people might literally, their ambition will just be for it to be a side hustle. They don't necessarily want to make millions. They just want to make a few grand on the side to pay for the holiday every year or whatever it might be. So on that basis alone, I do think that Wix will continue to keep growing. I mean, the announcement that got me even thinking about this and considering it as a potential contender was Privy. Do you guys follow Dave Gerhardt? That's the CMO at Privy.
I know the news, and it is like a wow moment.
Yeah, so there's been a bump with COVID, and the Wix themselves have gone from powering about 400k e-commerce stores to over 600k e-commerce stores, and more than 150% growth in revenue going through the platform as well. So yeah, that phone analogy of it being like Android to the Apple a few years ago, I think that's right. But I do think Wix will continue to grow, and there'll be the odd agency out there like us that'll pop up that'll just be a Wix agency. If you ask me, I think there'll be people that do marketing just for that platform in 5-10 years time.
Do you know, that's not a problem. It's like you have web development agencies that just take an off-the-shelf WordPress theme, and they might put some bespoke items in, but it's very much something you could have done yourself, but somebody's done it with a little bit more competence. Yeah. It's almost like that's, if that's the level that Wix is aiming at, so then they don't want to get into Shopify Plus and a huge Magento installs and things like that. That's absolutely fine. If I had a little product and I wanted to do a proof of concept, can I make this and can I sell it online? Yeah, give it a go. There's no need for a bigger platform. So you could use it as a stepping stone, if you wanted to have something a bit more ambitious 3-5 years down the line. But if you just wanted to have a weekend off and see if you could do it and throw a product online and sell it. Like, yeah, do it on Wix. I bet you could probably do it in a few hours.
I think we should do it as a follow-up to this podcast. Just come up with a random product and try and sell one.
We'll sell an ebook, which is why you should use Shopify for your e-commerce store. Available via Wix.com.
Cruel, Jeff, cruel. There's a bit of copy on the Wix website, Jeff, which I wanted to run past you, which I find really funny, actually. It says, Wix makes it simple to get your website found on Google. With Wix SEO Whiz, answer a few questions about your site, location, and keywords, and get a personalized SEO plan to get found online. Is that you out of a job, mate, or what?
No, I think that's, it's a good stepping stone again. So if somebody can be aware of SEO and organic performance from day one of creating their website or starting their business, that's a good thing for us. If they're taking it seriously, again, 3-5 years down the line, they might be taking it really seriously. And that's the point when Wix will fall down and they will need an agency to look after it.
Yeah. Is it a bit of a Dunning-Kruger effect thing where they'll enter the SEO realm via Wix and think, oh God, I'm getting a handle on this. I'm getting a few good organic rankings, but they will hit the point where they'll realize, oh my God, there is so much to this that I don't know about.
I've used the Wix SEO Whiz, completed it, mate. Like, it's quite often a mentality you see with small business owners. Yeah, we've done it. It's the same kind of thing with WordPress sites. Well, we've got Yoast, that's it. That's our SEO done. Again, it used to be one of the shortfalls of Wix, I guess pre-2016 when they were on this Flash builder. It was pretty tragic, and there was a lot of stuff you couldn't do, a lot of really, really poor shortfalls. I think you used to have generic URLs for a page. So you created a page which was like my dog grooming site, and it would give you a URL which was just like a random string of characters and numbers and things like that, which just really isn't very user friendly. Never mind, coming at it from the SEO angle. But nowadays, you can put in things like canonical tags and basic implementation of like language tags and stuff. But and obviously there is a ceiling where it falls apart. So adding things like structured data, hard, nigh on impossible. But obviously at that point when you're starting to think about those things is when you really starting to take your business seriously, and you might have hit a performance plateau. So, that it's nice to have that stuff, but it will only become a problem at a certain point in your journey. And on day one, you really don't need to think about it.
Yeah. On day one, it's worrying about, have you got a good product? Is the product market fit? It's day one of marketing school kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So one of the questions you see on Google and auto suggest is like, can Wix do good SEO, and what the questions they're about? And the answer is yes. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. If you've got a product page and it's got some good copy on there, and it's engaging for users, it's going to be engaging for search engines as well. Never mind what platform you're using. There are limitations, but all platforms have limitations.
Of course. Is there, Joe, on that Dunning-Kruger effect thing with SEO, i.e. giving people a gateway to start knowing about this, and then suddenly as they get into it, they'll realize that there's a bit more to it, and there's thousands and thousands, millions of people getting paid to do this professionally, and there's a reason for that. Is there a similar thing going on the paid side? Is there like, this is dead easy, we can give the URL to Google, to Facebook, pay for some traffic, but at a point it's going to stop working for whatever reason?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think if you look at the stuff that we're doing with our own clients when they're on Shopify and on other platforms as well, but there comes that stage where we optimize the feed. We've got a feed of products that we put onto Google, sometimes onto Facebook, and we optimize the titles and descriptions and everything else so that they show up and they're competitive within the realm of Google. Yeah. And it's that extra step on top of just having your product somewhere in an ad in the hope that they will sell. And we do depend on a handful of apps for that before we even get to the third-party stuff as well. And so, yeah, I'm sure that it's possible to run a bunch of campaigns and have them make you money. Absolutely. But especially like Jeff's saying, when there's weaknesses in things like structured data, that's something that Google will use to make sure that certain attributes in your feed are correct and things like that. If you can't get that, if you can't necessarily get some of the rule-based stuff that we do before an item even leaves the platform, if you lose all of that, then you are going to struggle to really compete with the big guys. And it's, you know, it takes us back to that kind of duality of, if you just want to run something on the side on the weekend and, you know, pay for your holiday, I'm sure you can get away with it. You can absolutely do it. And there's people that will join Wix and will never ever leave because it's right for them. But as soon as you decide you want to, I don't know, say you sell skincare and you decide you want to go and compete with Boots at long last, like you'd better be good. And I would question quite strongly whether Wix can actually serve your needs at that point.
Yeah. The piece I read was, look, if we compare Wix directly to Shopify, Wix was founded in, I think, the mid-2000s, and it was a blog and site, a portfolio site, something for a restaurant to stick the menu on, you know, a basic, not much more than an online brochure kind of thing. But Shopify has been built from day one as an online store platform. So, you know, there's years of history. When you think of Shopify in that instance, you know, it's gone through the mill. It's built loads of stores. It's found the problems. It's solved the problems. We've gone through rounds and rounds and rounds of it. Wix seems to be quite new to the e-commerce space, and it's catching up quickly, and it'll do a job, but it will always be a step behind Shopify just for that reason, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I guess that's a tick in Wix's book as well, because you know, if you're building a more content-driven site, or you see you've got an e-commerce site which, you know, yes, it has a product page, but there's a hell of a lot of content behind it, perhaps Wix is your best choice, because that is something that Shopify is famously weak at.
Spot on. Shall we finish up by talking about that horrendous advert that Wix brought out?
Can do, yeah, by all means. They're obviously pushing in a few directions at the minute.
What did we think of it? George, you want to have a crack at describing it for people that might be listening?
So in a sentence, there's a guy who is depicted as a user of WordPress effectively, and he's seeing a shrink because it's driven him insane, right? And I think if they'd stopped there and they'd done it in the right tone of voice, it might have been quite funny. But like, the guy's like drenched through because he's all like sweating buckets and stuff. And at one point, they even depict WordPress as being like this crazy man whose eyes are like spinning in his sockets and all the rest of it. And I think, yeah, they've gone directly after a competitor who are arguably better at a lot of things. They've poked fun at mental health in the middle of a time when, you know, we've all been locked in the house for a year. I think there's a lot of people who are being very open about the state of their mental health right now. And yeah, they've done it to sort of be aggressive and make a statement clearly, but I think they've upset a lot more people than they've ever sort of been able to please with it. And there are a lot of SEOs I've seen commenting on it more than anything else that are kind of taking the stance of, we've never used Wix products and now we never will. So they've finally gotten that offering, like Jeff's saying, where they could compete on that, and they've just driven off their target audience instead, because those guys quite like WordPress.
Yeah, so they've made a poor attempt at trying to convince guys to come across from WordPress to using Wix. I think they've put more off than they have brought people in.
Well, yeah, I think it must be 40 years ago now that was in David Ogilvy's book, where he's saying, if you're trying to get someone to convert away from any given brand or whatever, don't make the first step to take the piss out of the users of that brand, because those are the people you actually want to buy your stuff, and you're just going to annoy them. And what have Wix done at step one? Like, is it any wonder?
It's crazy. Did you see it, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got a baseline opinion on stuff like this, which is competitor campaigns, especially of that ilk, are just not a good idea. You know, I did a bit of research on them a couple of weeks ago when I was thinking about campaigns, campaign examples, which I liked. Mm-hmm. And I ended up on the Mac versus PC ones from the kind of mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Which are, you know, widely applauded, and all they're basically saying is like, haha, you're Windows, like, you're a nerd. We're Apple, we're cool. And I've watched them all again, and, you know, I really dislike it.
Really? Okay.
You need to have your own reasons for being better than your competitors, other than just saying your competitors are shit.
Yeah. You need to build up your own house, not tear your competitors the ones down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Joe, do you want to give us a final couple of sentence summary? So is Wix a contender? Yes or no? If no, why not?
Is it a contender in this space? I think yes, absolutely. If you're trying to run a lifestyle business, or you know what, given that Wix are better at content, if you are someone who's got a really strong personal brand and you just want to sell a couple of bits on the side, but actually your brand and your content is the main part of the show, then yeah, maybe Wix is for you. But if you're starting an e-commerce business with the aim of being the next Ben Francis or whoever, and you want to run this thing and make it incredible and massive and do really intelligent things with your marketing and stuff, then Wix isn't ready now. It's not going to be ready by the time you need it to be ready, and you'll get off on the right foot and stay there if you just go to a different platform instead.
Brilliant summary. Thank you very much. Cheers, boys.